Dealers are very concerned about the shortages in the industry. The industry associations have recognised that, and they know that something needs to be done. There's only a small number of mechanics available in Australia, but the demand is more than it's available. So we have to come up with solutions which will help the dealerships get skilled labour. And the only way you can do that is sourcing from outside to inject additional skilled workers into the system so that we don't have poaching. Dealers are hurting because it's impacting on their profit and their bottom line. If you can't repair enough cars or service enough cars, increasingly people will start wondering whether they should even be buying cars from some dealerships, and people do not like waiting 3 to 4 months to get a car serviced. As we know, every day that you don't have a mechanic on a hoist, you're losing $700 to $1,000 a day in revenue, and it's really important to make sure every hoist has a mechanic available working on it. Future-proofing is where you anticipate your future need for skilled workers. If you know that every quarter you lose a Renault tech or a Subaru tech or a Mercedes-Benz tech, you build that into your plan, and you know 6 months out, you're looking at recruiting someone to fill those vacancies. And by doing that, you're not likely to have the gaps, which quite often are between 6 weeks to 8 weeks, even 12 weeks in some cases, between one person leaving and the next person starting from the local market. The good thing about recruiting an overseas skilled worker, you've got them locked in for a period of 4 years because of that period of contract, and they're not going anywhere. They don't have the same mobility access that other Australian workers would, because in that 4-year period you may have 2, even 3 Australian workers doing the same job if they were available. Well, clearly they need to make sure they have a good apprentice training program for the long term for their dealership, scoping out good ads for attracting quality candidates. With regard to that advertising, is to make sure it's fit for purpose for using it for immigration to be able to get overseas skilled workers, which means to make sure that the position is well described for the occupation, to make sure that the ad also reflects the salary range that's required. There's no use advertising a job for 40 to 50,000 when we know that skilled workers to come into Australia need to be on a minimum of 53,900. So you need to make sure that the salary range is appropriate, and also you need to make sure you have good retention packages once you get them here, so they stay with your business and work with you and give you the productivity and the profit that you require for your business. It is important, you've got to make sure you go for Australians first, but as we know, there are shortages in the industry. Australia's got a shortage of at least 16,500 motor mechanics, about 2,500 or more diesel mechanics. So that's when you have to go overseas and find a skilled worker from overseas. The skilled workers that we bring in, of course, will be trade tested and will also meet criteria relating to police checks and character references, medicals, English language, and of course, because they have an Australian trade qualification, that means they're most likely to get a visa to come to Australia because they meet all the criteria. The advantages of InWork is that it's not a migration agent, it's a specialist placement agency that has expertise in sourcing skilled workers through relationships it has with businesses overseas, in whether it's the Philippines or Sri Lanka or India or China, Middle East, South Africa, Europe, UK, Ireland. They can source skilled mechanics from all of these countries around the world, and they go through a very serious vetting, verification and screening process to make sure only the best technicians are available. There's no use presenting a technician to an employer, to a dealership, if the person cannot get a visa. Whether it's on medical grounds, character grounds, police checks, or not having an Australian trade qualification, it's a waste of time for the employer, for the candidate, and for our time in presenting people who can't get a visa. So we make sure our applicants or our candidates are visa ready and would be approved. That's important. The other important thing is because we provide a 2-year replacement guarantee on our recruitment costs, that is to the advantage of the employer. So we do motor mechanics, we do diesel mechanics, auto electricians, panel beaters, and we also do spray painters for regional areas. We can do heavy machinery, heavy trucks, we can do agricultural plant. For the candidate, once they've got the job, the sort of support we give them is we help them with accommodation. We make sure that once they cross the barrier, they get their tax file number applied for. We assist them with a range of things, settling into Australia and understanding the Australian lifestyle and culture. In addition, for the employer, we ensure that the administration aspects of bringing in a skilled worker are minimised, and we take over that part of the process. But once they deploy to the workshop and they commence working, it's the workshop's employee, and they manage them like they would other skilled workers, recognising, of course, there are cultural differences. The candidate has moved on, decides wants to leave the job, there are technical issues or whatever, they don't fit in for either side, that we will replace the candidate. It looks challenging It's not challenging. You're not the only one in the same situation. Many others have done it before. Many others are now successful. You don't have to continue suffering and not having access to skilled workers.